Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of Pride Month, looking at LGBTQ artists. Today, we're going to be looking at a collaboration between the groups We Used to Cut the Grass and Trust Fund Ozu. Now, I believe we have checked out Trust Fund Ozu previously, but I don't think I've ever heard of We Used to Cut the Grass. Not sure what kind of music we have in store for us. The track is called Hot Vegan Summer. And already I can tell this is going to be a fun video. Let's dive in. See what they're bringing to the table today.
Yum, yum, yummy!
Hello, and welcome to Buffalo Wild Wings. We now have a wealth of vegan options. What'll it be, sir?
So I think that intro was in 7, but this is certainly 4/4. Super funky though. Loving the bass work in from the intro. What in the world? The synth over here? Oh, we got one over here too though.
Okay, yo.
All right. We have a little bit of a hyper pop approach to like a funky rock sound here that I could certainly get behind. It is the interesting thing is I was about to say that it's maximalist in approach, but I don't think that's actually true. I think it gives off that vibe. It feels like there's a lot going on, but I don't think there actually is throughout this track. There's usually a drum part, a bass part, a guitar part, sometimes a synth part, and then vocals. It's pretty straightforward as far as layering and rolls go in a rock song. But it feels intense. There's a constant addition to this. Layers too. Like there's not just one synth at times. There can be two. When the vocals are in, sometimes it's one vocalist, but sometimes it's dual harmonizing with itself. Sometimes there's vocals that get panned around and echoed and delayed too. So that adds texture, if nothing else. Maybe not layers that would create a literal density, but it is sound. The song is also generally upbeat, driven, constantly pushing forward. That also gives it a little bit of, I should say that embellishes the overwhelming feeling that the track can have at times. But I think some of this ignores the fact that the track is also generally laid back in places too. The intro is fairly chill. We haven't really done any of the funky bass work yet, just a couple of slides that focuses around harmonic information. We got the vocals. They're just yum, 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 yum. That echo. Oh, that's great. And the ending of the track bookends this well too by going for a more minimalistic atmospheric approach as well that kind of ties into how we started the track. So it's really only the middle of the song that feels feels overwhelming, feels maximal. And now that I think about it, the middle of the track is maybe 2.5 minutes long, if that. And we cram a lot of ideas into that short runtime. So that probably is why it feels rather dense to me. Not that any specific section is dense, but simply that within this amount of time, there is a lot of sounds and ideas, harmonies, melodies, rhythms to keep track of. The time signature is constantly in flux. And I think that's really it at the end of the day. Not that the song is difficult to parse, but simply that listening to it analytically, I never had time to catch my breath. And I can't even say that I fully grasped any of the sections individually, because by the time I got halfway into understanding it, checked out the drum pattern, checked out the time signature, the harmonies, the melody, we're already moving on to the next idea. I felt like I just didn't have enough time with anything. This is certainly what I would consider maybe a pacing issue with this analytical perspective, a critical listening. But I think for casual listening, this is done really well. It never really gives you a chance to get bored of anything, but at the same time, I don't feel like it rushes too fast, but it does throw a lot at you, and it keeps the song consistently sounding fresh, at least until the end, which I felt was a little indulgent. 30 seconds or so of that finale felt quite a bit much for a fade out, but maybe that's just me. We also have some cool vocal variety going on in here too. We have whoever's doing the yum stuff at the beginning, some cool texture work on that, not really focused on melody or even sentences and delivering lines. It's just a vibe, sonically and word choice. And then we kick that off into some pretty straightforward, I guess like indie rock style vocal delivery, not necessarily too focused on perfect pitch intonation. There's certainly some dissonance that is in there that we really don't hear in any of the instrumentation. It really just is the vocals, but they're also harmonized with themselves at times, and that creates more tension, but it all kind of works. I'm not really sure. Maybe there's a waviness in the music somewhere. Maybe there's a synth going on where the warble of the dissonance kind of bleeds into that, and it feels more textural than specific to the vocal harmonies. Regardless, though, we get some cool little melodies here, and then we get the chorus, I think, and then we have a rap section, and then we have like a spoken word sing-songy thing that goes on with a more focus on melody, but still not purely melodic vocal delivery. And I think bringing all this together with the single voice versus dual voice, with the singing versus rapping versus sing-songy stuff, it just creates a track that is, once again, kind of constantly in flux. What you are directly paying attention to, what most people latch onto in music, is the vocals. And that, much like the music, is certainly changing consistently. And I think that matches the energy of the music while also presenting something for the vocal or for the listener to latch onto and be guided through this track. It can be overwhelming. I think that's probably why I liken this to hyperpop at the beginning of the track or at the beginning of this analysis, because hyperpop can be very overwhelming. And this kind of captures that feeling outside of an electronic atmosphere, which is where hyperpop tends to thrive. Very interesting. I would be remiss to not talk about the rhythm section here. The drummer is consistent, but has some really fun fills, and the bassist is an absolute beast. Both funky, but also technical. There's really great lines in here, but they also know when to back off too. The intro absolutely could have been more intense, especially as bass focused as it was, and they chose not to. They understood the song had to build into that first true section, the verse, and they kind of simplified the idea down and allowed themselves to build into that funkier, more intricate and complex uh, funky bass line. And I love that. The bassist isn't there to for like self-serving needs to constantly show off. They're a solid bassist, they got chops, they got rhythm and precision. Absolutely fantastic work there. But if the music doesn't need them to be technical, they won't be. And I always appreciate that in a musician, to be able to, set themselves aside and focus on what the song, what the art needs. And so between the drums and the bass, we have a super consistent rhythmic element underneath this track that I think does wonders at trying to keep everything cohesive. There's a few jumps between these sections, and it's usually those two that are kind of being the glue that holds everything together. No matter what direction the song feels like it needs to zig or zag into, these two instruments make sure that it is somewhat connected to what has come before it. And I really appreciate that. This isn't to diminish the guitarist or keyboardist, organist, pianist, whatever is going on over there. They're doing a great job as well. It just doesn't really stand out to me as much as the variety on the vocals or just the sheer technical skill on display from the rhythm section. The guitar riffs in here are great. They help push the song forward. At times they can be a quasi counterpoint to the vocals. They do present some melodic ideas in here. We do have that cool dual organ thing going on about halfway into the track. I thought that was nice, creating some counterpoint just within itself. But again, compared to everything else, I wouldn't call them the weakest element, but they're certainly the one that feel the most stable, while everything else gets a chance to explore ideas. And I've said this many times in the past, sometimes you just need an instrument to be stable, to be the floor for things to be built on. Most people don't appreciate the foundation of a building, the concrete it's built on, but without that, you have no building. It's incredibly important. And once again, it feels like setting the ego aside in order to do what the track needs. It wouldn't surprise me if we checked out a different song from We Used to Cut the Grass and we had stronger writing or put more focus or spotlighting on the guitar and synth player, where we just didn't get that here. And I think that's about it. This is just a fun, laid back track. I don't think there's much more to it. I don't have a strong grasp on the harmonic structure, particularly because there's so many clashing ideas between lead melodies and chord progressions. I do think that the general chord progressions I heard were lighter, but still there's that tension there. And I think it's just supposed to be a fun sort of experimental-esque harmony, where they're not going for the cheesy, tried and true, light and fun and bouncy chord progressions. They wanted to spice it up a little bit. color outside the lines a bit, but I do think at the heart it is supposed to still be fun and light and bouncy. And it does at least allude towards that, even if I found it to be a bit more frictional than I would want for that specific atmosphere. Let's see what lyrics. Let's see what the lyrics are in this track. I did forget to bring up tempo, which I remembered because I had to transcribe some of the lyrics by hand. I couldn't find lyrics anywhere out there on the internet. Fortunately, the video has quite a few in it, though it isn't 100%. So I had to go through, though, and put it into a text document so I could read it all out. And through that, I remembered the fact that the song starts in a very wild 7. I think it's 7. Anyways, I listened to it a couple of times and I'm not sure if it's 7/4 or like 13/8, like just shy of 7/4. It's a wild idea. We shift back to 4/4 for majority of the track, but towards the end of the song, we have some crazy metric modulation where the time signature doesn't change, but the song feels like the rhythmic element is consistently shifting. Like every, I don't know, 2 bars or something, we change up the time feel. That was a really cool section there. Um, but yeah, so it's not just the fluctuations in instrumentation. It isn't just the fluctuations in like vocal delivery. It isn't just all of that stuff, which feels like a lot. There's also all of the temporal elements that that compound the density of this track. There's just, again, so much to keep track of. Now, lyrically, I don't know if we can take this too seriously. Ultimately, the end of the track has a section that says, I'm going vegan just for the summer, hot vegan summer. And of course, a lot of this track is about vegan food. Buffalo Wild Wings now has vegan options. What'll it be, sir? That's how the track begins. Someone says, I'll have the vegan croissant. Is it ethically sound if I add some oat crumbs? Well, that's the way I like it. What I thought was originally the chorus says everyone's having fun at Buffalo Wild Wings, which this whole Buffalo Wild Wings thing is comical, but the gag stops here, so I guess that's fine. Honestly, they kind of ran its course just in the first minute. It would definitely have been too much if they stuck with it. I think they had great comedic timing for that. Then we have the rap section. They call me Vegan the Stallion, which is just wow. It says they're so vegan that they've never even had chicken pox. That you can't take out the green queen. They rise from the ashes like a phoenix. No Joaquin, which is just, oh my geez, it's simultaneously great because I don't think Joaquin's name, Joaquin Phoenix here, would normally be something people immediately think to rhyme with queen because the E, the long E sound with the N after it is so easy to rhyme. There's so many words that fit that as a hard rhyme and even as a soft rhyme if you were going to try to transition into a different rhyme scheme. But to bring that up, that just cracks me up. But it comes out of nowhere too. Like this whole thing is about how they're so vegan, but then they rise from the ashes like a phoenix. And it just comes out of like left field. And it seems like it was just done for the Joaquin rhyme, which to me, it just cracks me up. It's like, I don't know, that is the random millennial humor. I think that I would love to know if there's some deeper meaning to this, why this was brought up here. I don't know. If you have some insight into why they might have gone this direction lyrically, I'm all ears. But to me, it's random. It feels very, I don't know. Y'all ever watch like Adult Swim? Yes. Like mid 2000s, early 2010s Adult Swim. Yes, the shows, but also like the title cards that they do between shows this sort of just like random humor is sort of baked into, I feel like, my generation as a whole. And that's the kind of humor I'm getting here. There's no connection to anything, but it was done for that use to get Joaquin in there as a joke. And that tickles my funny bone. It's so dumb that it's comical, but there's a genius to it. It isn't just like lowbrow stupid humor. But then it says Kermit speaking the gospel. It ain't easy being green. And then, of course, they had the dancing Kermits, which, again, I don't know if Kermit was specifically brought up here for that, so that they could have a reason for Kermit to dance in their music video, or if this was just the first line they thought of, and then the music video came subsequently from that. We have this joke about a tattoo on their arm of a cow carcass that says, "Friends are not food." And it's true. Like, I don't know. It seems so irreverent. It is comical. It is lighthearted. It's not trying to say really much of anything other than put a smile on your face with what probably started as a joke. What if Buffalo Wild Wings, known for their chicken wings, went vegan? Maybe they have vegan wings there. I don't know. I've never been to a Buffalo. Well, I have, but not in like 15 years. Back when people called it B-dubs. Or maybe that was just a regional thing. I don't know. But it ends with everything will be my dinner and I'll see you in heaven if one night at Arby's won't affect us. I don't even know how to interpret that. So, much like the music, there's some chops on display here, but it's really done to create a fun, bouncy track. And I'd love for there to be a deeper second layer to this, because I feel like it's dismissive to just call a song fun. Sometimes that's all it's going for, and I think that's what's going on here. But if there's more to it, I don't want to be some definitive point where people point towards and say, look, this guy said it's just fun. There's nothing else here. Don't think about it too deeply. Like, that's just what I got out of it on a first time listen. But everything from the video to the music to the lyrics, it puts a smile on my face. It feels old school. It feels very 2010, early 2010s. And I'm here for it. I had a blast with this. And there's solid chops all around putting this together, whether it's the instruments, the lyrics, the production, visually and audio. But I don't have a deeper read on this. I just have an appreciation for the craft. Those are my thoughts. We used to cut the grass featuring Trust Fund Ozu, Hot Vegan Summer. What do you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to, into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.